Premium Media's Mining Weekly is interviewing Niël Pretorius, the CEO of DRDGOLD, and this interview is taking place following the declaration by DRDGOLD of a doubled final 2025 cash dividend. And this was done on record revenue and strong free cash flow. Hi Niël, it's great to be able to chat to you. There's a wonderful gold price tailwind behind gold companies at the moment, but this is DRDGOLD's 18th consecutive year of dividend declaration. So it's a company that copes with the downs as well as the ups. How would you describe the present state of DRDGOLD, and what future are you planning for this Johannesburg and New York listed business?
The gold price cycle has really, I think, been a catalyst to a new direction in our thinking, in the sense that Ergo, which was started, the Ergo operations, which we acquired through an initial joint venture, the capital that we invested was premised on a mining program of 12 years. It didn't look beyond that. Obviously, with your annual updates and so forth, it changed as we accumulated new assets. But it was going to start running out of steam roughly 4 years ago, and the decommissioning would have started. And we decided, in view of what at the time started looking like a decoupling and a rebasing of gold relative to other economic drivers and indicators, that maybe closing it's premature. Would there be ways and means of extending its life? Because there were still a lot of resources left. It's just that those resources were deemed non-viable. And we had to take a very long and hard look at the cost construct of Ergo. And one of the things that really got in the way was the uncertainty with regards to the supply and the cost of electricity. And if we could find a solution for that, then many of the other things we'd be able to do by way of engineering solutions. So we decided on the 60 megawatt solar farm, which was duly built, and that was coupled to the battery energy storage system, which is a 180 megawatt storage system, which means that we could basically run Ergo and related infrastructure for a period of 12 hours a day of renewable energy. It's like a halving of Ergo's carbon footprint, and it brought down the risk categorization and the risk profile of Ergo. It changed that because electricity moved from number 2 to a lot lower down in the risk hierarchy of Ergo. So that really was the catalyst. And at the moment, what the gold price is doing for us, to your question, is it's helping us to make the changes that are necessary to extend this life of mine. And they're very much focused around alternative deposition storage capacity. The Brakpan Tailings Dam, which has been around since 1984, has served out its term as a useful facility. It's now in a not quite in a decommissioning phase, although we've reduced deposition onto that dam from 2.1 million tons per month back in 2022 down to 1.65 million tons per month. And it will progressively be reduced even further. But that's being phased out, and the focus point for Ergo is to create new deposition space and to resume deposition on Daggafontein, which is another available facility that has a capacity that at 500,000 tons a month could be used for another 20 years. And the gold price is helping us to do that. We could spend all of this capital, Ergo about 4 billion rand over the next few years, and without having to dip into our facility. And the same applies to Far West Gold operations. We've been talking about Far West Gold Phase 1 and Far West Gold Phase 2 since the early days of acquiring Far West Gold. And we're now executing on Phase 2. We're doubling the size of the plant from a design capacity of 600,000 tons a month to 1.2 million tons a month. And there's also a project underway, the construction of the Regional Tailings Storage Facility, the RTSF, which is an 800-hectare facility that's going to be fully lined. That's been going since June of last year, and that's going along really well. There's been some rain interruptions and so forth, but that facility too is going to facilitate this change in throughput profile and change in production profile for Far West Gold going forward, also adding about 20 years of life. So that target that we spoke about the other day at the JSE when we did the 130th anniversary celebration of, hopefully we'll be here to celebrate our 150th year anniversary. The gold price is helping us to put in the infrastructure without incurring debt at this stage to set the platform and to establish the infrastructural capacity to make that ambition hopefully a reality. And by 2028, that's where we've put the pin in the calendar. That's where we want to move from our current throughput rate and output rate. At the moment, we're at 150 to 155,000 ounces per year. We want to push that all the way to 200,000 ounces a year off the back of a very significantly increased throughput profile of 3 million tons per month, 36 million tons a year, as opposed to this year's 25 million tons.
And this year's 130th anniversary of DRD Gold proved that DRD Gold has resilience and robustness, but it also comes with important ESG attainment. How has the environment benefited from the work of DRD Gold in the last 10 years?
We've done the better part of 700 and maybe almost 800 hectares of cleanup of material. Remember, all of our production comes from the reclamation, the retreatment of old mine dumps. And if you looked at the Johannesburg skyline 20 years ago, starting in Brakpan and then sort of moving all the way along the main reef through to Rudderpoort, you'll see that there have been very significant changes to that skyline. Some of them more recognizable or prominent than others, like the Top Star drive-in, which was built on top of a mine dump. That's gone now. That's been completely cleared and it's been rehabilitated. When we adopted the idea of sustainable development as core to our strategic thinking and execution 15 years ago, we set our sights on growing capital in respect of all 5 of the very distinct sustainable development capital stocks. But because of our size and because of our capacity, we had to do that in such a way that the one complemented the other. A fancy way of describing that is an integrated value creation model. It means that whatever you invest in terms of environmental capital or nature capital with regards to solar now and with regards to water, for example, it also needs to contribute towards your financial bottom line or some of the other capitals, like the environmental, the removal of dumps, and also the cleaning of our storage facilities. These initiatives or efforts also make a contribution towards social capital because it improves the quality of life of the communities around your operations. And we believe that for a business to prosper, you can't be let's call it an island of stability in an ocean of social instability. You have to be socially relevant without creating a culture of dependence. So you need to assist communities to also become self-sustainable. So firstly, you want to do that in an environment that is conducive to a better life quality. And that means, for example, not living right next to an old toxic mine dump. That mine dump gets removed and suddenly your environment is already enhanced and it's better. Now you just need to make sure that it doesn't become a dumping site or it doesn't get invaded by illegal occupiers and turn into an informal settlement. But those are the sort of things that, where we've been focusing in terms of social capital and the environment. The nature capital, those are more distinct. It's the containment of operations, it's the water, and it's also the solar. It's been core to our business. It's really become embedded, not just in terms of our strategy, but I think it's become an important part of our value system. Martin, for several years now, I've really been a spectator to a team of people that are technically astute, that are strategically astute, and I'm listening and watching them as they put these plans together, and I listen to the language that they use. And it's fantastic to see how these things have just become part of the everyday thinking. And if you have that, if it's that deeply embedded into your business system, it adds to your resilience, it adds to the robustness, but also the attention and the quality of management that's required in terms of running these systems properly. For example, safety, which is an important component to that. It's very hard to be really disciplined and have high quality in respect of one aspect of the business and not in the other. It rubs off. So by driving these programs the way that they have, the general quality of your systems benefit from that. And that ultimately finds its way into where you are with regards to risk, where you are with regards to the ability to overcome cycles and so forth. And one of the things that's always been very important to us is that we do want to offer full exposure to movements in the gold price. As a relatively small company, our market cap's only about 22 billion rand, but as a relatively small company, and one that has an operating model that is relatively predictable, to the point of almost being, I don't want to say boring, but we're processing stockpile. It's not easy, but it's also we're not 4 kilometers underground and, all sorts of different surprises and so forth. You need to bring a measure of excitement into your story and in your business proposition. And taking full exposure to the gold price, I think, introduces that volatility. If you want to take exposure to movements in the gold price, then the stock offers that at a multiple. So in order to be able to offer that full exposure, it does mean that you need to be able to maintain a holding pattern during the down cycle and not going into distress, and still spend the right sort of capital and be able to contain costs and maybe even switch off certain aspects of your costs to remain positioned to take full advantage of the upcycle. And I think that's what you're seeing this year, that notwithstanding the fact that our production was relatively flat. Last year we were just north of 5 tons of gold production. This year we were just south of 5 tons of gold production. There's a 3% difference year on year. And that notwithstanding, we saw a doubling of just about everything. Cash operating profits up 69%, earnings up 69%. Revenue came in just below 8 billion rand. And that's because we weren't locked into some sort of a forward sale hedge that we had to take out years ago when we had to invest capital or when we needed money to just see us through the next down cycle. So it requires dedication and commitment, but I think the team has just made it their own, and the way that they do their planning and the way that they execute, it's geared towards that. So it's a common goal. There's a common purpose in the organization. You share that common goal. We're going to mine these 6 million ounces, and we're going to do that sustainably. We're going to do that profitably, and we're not going to compromise on quality. And you see that.
To what extent will you stay at this level of solar power, or could you be totally green from a renewables point of view at some time in the future?
So we're not looking at building new solar stations. We've been looking at ways of increasing the number of renewable units that we may recognize. But that would be by way of supply agreements with power suppliers. And we've set some very specific goals. I mean, we don't want to go back. We don't want to have a larger carbon footprint than the one that we have now. And if you're going to be taking your tons from 25 million tons a year to 36 million tons a year, which is what we're planning for financial 2028 and onwards, it means you're going to be pumping more material, you're going to be using more electricity, and you have larger plants, or one of the plants at least will be significantly larger. So in order to maintain the current carbon footprint as a percentage of total power consumption, we are going to have to bring in some new and additional renewable units. But that will be from external suppliers, that won't be ourselves.
There was an indication that there's quite a lot of collaboration you're receiving from government in general. I think you spoke of it being like chalk and cheese, the difference. And what are you noticing from government in general and the Department of Mineral Resources and Petroleum in particular that's positive at the moment?
Well, one, we had to obviously take stock of our own mindset and our own attitude towards regulation. When we decided that we were going to extend Ergo, we entered a new arena of the renewal of licenses and application for new licenses and so forth, which was different compared to what we had in the past. And in retrospect, when we did our own post-mortem as to why we experienced all of these delays, as much as we wanted to blame the regulator to be completely responsible for it, we did realize that there were maybe certain things that we could have done differently and certainly could have done better. So we've lifted our game, and I think we're communicating at a different level. And the response has been really encouraging, because whereas in 2018, 2019, when we were applying for certain licenses, if you reached out and asked for guidance, the response was short. Submit your application and we'll consider it, and then we'll let you know. It's different now. We can actually engage with the Department of Water Affairs, their safety office, Water Affairs and Sanitation. We can engage with their dam safety office and say, so this is the design that we have in mind. What do you think? What is it that you see here that you don't like? And we're getting constructive feedback. So it's clear that they don't want to stop us doing this, but they just want to make sure that we do it the right way. And I think that's a good attitude to have. In terms of DMPR, they, once again, out of the officialdom, once you sort of drop one level below the political level, what we're experiencing is also, certain individuals within the department starting to recognize that, and I made the point earlier of we could potentially be a natural resource. There are areas that have been affected by 130, 140 odd years of mining in and around the Johannesburg area, where what we do could play a role just reversing that. And, for a long time we've been using this slogan of reversing or rolling back the environmental impact of mining and cleaning up a particular stream, for example, the Russen and Bosman streams. We're really keen to do that. And I think there's recognition that this is something where we could play a role. We won't come at the cost of the taxpayer. Government's facilitating that. So some of the old abandoned dumps, which don't necessarily form part of our portfolio, is there a way that we could be a participant in an initiative in terms of which those could be dealt with to no longer pose that nuisance to their surrounding communities and so forth? So I'm really positive. I know we like trashing South Africa and we're always complaining about stuff and so forth, but there are pockets of excellence everywhere. And if you go into these things with the right attitude, it's reciprocated. And I'm hoping that we could build on that, because we really want to do that. We do want to be around for at least another 20 years with regards to these assets. And we do want to move a lot more waste, not just from dumps, but also from water systems and so forth. And we'll do well. We get paid well. Our shareholders hopefully will get paid well. And I see that there's a provision of deferred tax in excess. It's the single largest liability that we carry is a deferred tax liability. So because of the unique dispensation with regards to capital expenditure, you recognize a deferred tax liability going forward. And it's our single largest liability. And you know what, Martin, if we can pay those taxes and they can be applied for the benefit of South Africa, we're going to be doing that with a smile, because this is our place. This is where we want to be.
And your approach to uplifting host communities is interesting. I mean, you do support clinics, you do support schools, but you also have an approach that imparts knowledge to some community members that's enabled them to supply major chain stores, and they do so with great pride.
Absolutely. So we partnered with an outfit called Msizi, and this has become an expert field. If you think that going into a community with good intentions and deciding what they need and thinking that you'll receive rounds of applause by simply just showering them with your generosity, it's a fallacy. It doesn't work like that. It's an expert field, and Msizi has really guided us over the last 10 years, maybe even longer, towards the right sort of program. And I think we've now gained very significant traction. We've had 11,000 participants in our agricultural initiative. That's teaching people how to take that first step out of poverty. But it's branched out from that. There are life skills programs. In terms of youth programs, there are workshops to provide guidance on how to take the right sort of decision at crucial times in your life. There are small business programs as well. We call them like the mini MBAs, the MBA for the informal sector. There are 5 distinct programs, and most of these programs are designed in such a way that what you gain by participating initially is knowledge. It's a how-to program, and you get guided through that. But then for those who really show commitment, so there's sometimes also a bit of a capital nudge, assisting people to sort of get things going. The informal economy, I believe, is really going to be the thing that will lift South Africa out of unemployment and poverty. That's where it's happening, and I think that's where the opportunity lies to really grow the South African economy and also grow the middle class. And we're seeing a hunger, a real desire amongst people to be empowered with knowledge and then to take that step. And they're successful. We've got some of our initial participants, people who started with a little vegetable garden the size of a door, because that's where you start, something the size of a door. A garden the size of a door can feed a family of 4 for a year. That's the underlying principle. And now they're suppliers to large brands, to large franchises. It's nice to see how people simply just, how they grab the opportunity and how they run with it. And it's no longer a charity. The pride that you see in somebody saying, I no longer collect a social grant. The people who work to get away from that and then announce it, that I'm no longer collecting a grant, is immense dignity in that.
And finally, Niël, what's the big takeaway?
Takeaway is we've got to get these programs rolled out. We've got to make sure that we make a success of these capital reinvestment programs and set DRD up for the next 20 years, Martin. So Jaco Skuman presented this morning, and I thought he did really well. We introduced 2 members of the executive, the COO and the CFO designate, Henriette Roger and Jaco. And Jaco went into some detail as to what these programs involve. He put a pin in a calendar And that's, all eyes are on that. We want to get to that point where we start the early commissioning of these new programs.
That was Crew Media's Mining Weekly, speaking to Niël Pretorius, the CEO of DRDGOLD.